Hi, I'm Tiffany and I'm a GMAT instructor with Manhattan Prep. Today, I'm here to talk with you about a GMAT foundations level problem. If you've already taken a look at it, then you can see that it is related to exponents. Before we dive in, what I'd really like to do is take a second to root ourselves in exponents. Even before that, though, I think it's important for you to know that these foundations level problems are really good for you. They do a couple of important things in your preparation. First, they help to ensure that you know the content. Before diving into really tough problems that combine a lot of different content areas, you're really solidifying, do you understand exponents clearly, or do you understand fractions clearly? The other thing that you want to do with these foundations problems is set really good behaviors for yourself. It's easier with these foundations problems to set the good behaviors now because you know that they're going to follow through then to the intermediate and expert level problems that you'll see later on. Okay, back to exponents. So let's ground ourselves in some of the rules of exponents quickly to make sure that you can tackle this problem. All right, when you see an exponent, you always have a base number. In this case, it's 2. And then you'll have the exponent. This is giving you an instruction, and when you see a positive exponent like this, essentially it's just telling you take 2 and multiply it by itself 3 times in a row. In the problem, you'll see some other scenarios aside from my positive exponent. One scenario is a negative exponent. What do you do with this? When you see a negative exponent, I want you to take this negative sign and turn it into a fraction bar. That gets rid of the negative sign and it reverts back to 2 cubed, but it's under a 1. And then you just do the same thing that you did before, 2 multiplied by itself 3 times in a row. You can see here that you had the same numbers, but because of this negative exponent, the outcomes were very different from 8 as a positive whole number to this positive fraction. The other scenario you see in this problem is a negative base number, and you'll see it with both even exponents and odd exponents. With an even exponent, you may recall from the past that a negative times a negative actually equals a positive, so you'll end up with a positive outcome. With an odd exponent here, however, you have 2 of these that cancel each other out. You still have 1 remaining negative though. So in this case, you do still have that negative outcome. All right, so we've grounded ourselves in these rules a little bit more fully. I want you to take a moment, pause, attempt this problem on your own before we attempt it together. Hope you took 2 minutes to do that and you had a great time. We're going to be talking about some tips that you can use to hopefully make this a little bit quicker for yourself. All right, I like to root myself in the question first. So which of the following has the greatest value? I always reframe this. I know that greatest value is GMAT speak for what is the largest number. That is my goal and what I'll be looking for, the largest number. So as I look at A, I notice something right off the bat here, right? I've got this 5 and it's multiplied by itself 6 times based on the exponent, but I have a negative sign out in front here. Because of this negative sign, I know that I'm going to end up with a very large number, but it will be a very large negative number. Glancing at the other answer choices, I'm seeing some positive options, which means I can eliminate A very quickly because a positive number is always larger than a negative number. Now I'm going to look through and see if I can find any others that are going to yield negative numbers as the outcomes. Aha, based on the rules that we covered early on, I'm seeing in C a negative base number multiplied an odd number of times. This also is going to have a negative outcome. All right, so we've already eliminated A and C. We are on a roll and we aren't even very far into this. So we have B, D, and E left. B, I noticed that I have a negative exponent. And if we recall from the previous examples, a negative exponent, you want to turn into a fraction bar. So I know that this is going to be a positive number, but it's also going to be a fraction, which isn't a very big positive number. So I'm going to put kind of a question mark next to this and see if any of the other ones are going to be larger. If I continue down to D, I see I have a negative number here, but it is a positive even exponent, which means that this is going to be a very large positive number. That's definitely going to beat out this fraction here. So I can actually eliminate B, go back and do that now. And I'm going to look at E and see if I can eliminate that for any other reasons. And E is very similar to B. We have this negative exponent here. This is going to be a positive number, but again, like B, it's going to be a fraction, so I can eliminate that. And I'm left with D, which is this positive, very large number. It must be the largest amongst this group of answer choices. I want you to take a moment, give yourself a pat on the back. We just solved this problem and we did no calculating whatsoever. The GMAT writers want you to dive into calculating really tough numbers. They're tempting you to do that, and your job is to fight that temptation. We did that successfully here, and we did it using a strategy called estimation. So rather than actually calculating all of these numbers, we just estimated what do we think that they are going to turn into. Ultimately, this was a very successful strategy here. We also went through and eliminated. So rather than seeking specifically the right answer, you eliminated all of the answers that you thought were incorrect. Subscribe for more GMAT Math Spotlight videos from Manhattan Prep, and leave us a comment telling us how you solved this problem. Happy studying.